Guys, what is going on? It's your old pal CHH. Welcome to today's video. I was looking through the movie shelves and it got me thinking about one of my real primitive days of getting into what's known as, I guess, boutique physical media. Now, by 2016, Scream Factory was like the company. In America, if you were collecting horror stuff, you were a Scream Factory collector. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, we were getting into the, the beginnings of things like Vestron Video, and Kino Lorber certainly existed, but it wasn't what it was today in terms of the horror genre. But this release was the release that just said, okay, we're about to enter a new era. And that was with Arrow Video. When I think about Arrow Video, I try to think back to the start of my collecting. Now, my start of Arrow really was getting a few random titles here or there that they put out, but this box set was the box set that just knocked the doors down for me. And I've always wanted to talk about these movies, and for some reason I haven't. Now, I've got two versions of this box set I want to talk to you guys about, but there's actually more than that. And the reason I want to talk about this is to kind of get the feelers out there, because Arrow needs to do a 4K version of this. But let's talk about this for a second. This is the House 2 Stories collection. Now, when I was a kid, I remember my grandma showing me the movie House, with Roger Cobb, a writer, moving back into this house he was living in where his son just disappeared in the swimming pool. Nobody knew what happened to him. And he decides to go back and he's going to write this novel about his war experience. Now, interestingly enough, his agent is like, no one gives a rat's ass about your war experience. You need to just make another, story, an original story. But he decides against doing that. He wants to make this book. Well, hijinks start to come into the fray of this when his neighbor is Norm from Cheers, who is a big fan and can't leave him alone. Now, the thing about House that I love so much is it's not your typical 80s horror movie. Now, some of the greatest characters from the 80s are, without a shadow of a doubt, female actors. And we think about, the final girls or the main stars of the movie. But what's so unique about House is, kind of like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, you've got more or less a middle-aged guy. Now, I think Roger Cobb in this movie is probably like in his mid-30s, so that's not exactly old or anything, but considered more middle-aged, which kind of makes me think, wow, I'm getting middle-aged. It's a unique experience. When you watch House, you're not going to feel like you're watching anything that's too similar to anything else from that time period. And in this house, scary things start happening at night. Roger Cobb opens doors, and these monsters pop out. He's hearing sounds. The grandma is killing herself all over again in the house through these apparitions. It's one of those movies that's kind of safe for kids to watch, but it's also pretty spooky in and of itself, too. And this features one of the greatest zombies with Big Ben, an army zombie that goes back to a story Roger Cobb had when he was reliving his Vietnam days. Now, I loved the movie, and I remember forgetting what the movie was called years after seeing it. It would always pop up into my head until eventually I picked it up on DVD, and I just knew when I looked at the cover of House, that's the movie I was thinking about. So Arrow Video put out this box set for House, and it was called 2 Stories. Now, this is the American box set. So in this, you're going to get 2 movies. The first one is obviously House, the 1986 movie, which, mind you, was produced by Sean Cunningham, and this was directed by Steve Miner. I thought so. Steve Miner directed this. So this is a 2K restoration from the original film elements. Now, I always have some sort of loving feeling for 2K stuff, because I remember reading about that, and watching 2K stuff still till this day is super impressive. If for some reason physical media can only be saved by going back to Blu-ray, I'd be totally fine with that. If as long as we can do like the higher 2K and 4K scan stuff from the film elements, I'd be totally happy. This still looks really, really good on physical media. If you're going to watch this today, this would look fantastic. It's one of those things where if we don't get a 4K of this, I guess it'd be okay. Of course, I want it because I want more features and I want to see this movie look as great as it can, but these are still very competitive. Don't let anybody tell you any different. As you can see, the box sets version have this not for individual sale on the cover, but I love House. This is such a fun movie, and this is the one that came in the box set, but there's also a different movie in here, House 2, the second story. Now, I'm so stupid because it took me years to realize, what is it, the double entendre, if you will, of the title, the second story, like a 2-story house and the second story. I just was just like, the second story, okay, like that seems a little weird. Like, why don't you just say part 2? And then my dumbass self finally figured it out. I am not the sharpest tool in the shed, ladies and gentlemen. But House 2 actually has Lar Park Lincoln in it from Friday the 13th, Part 7. And this one really harkens on, like, the whimsical nature of it. This is a really fun movie, and I like it a lot, but it's definitely a cheesy popcorn 80s flick. This came out in the late 80s. I think it was 88 or something. But it's really funny, and they even go as far as to make what's called a catter puppy in this. So the House 2 movie is definitely way more of a whimsical, fun, almost kid-friendly horror movie, if you will, but still great nonetheless. Now, this one also is a 2K restoration from the film Elements. Now, it's important to note that if you want to get these movies on Blu-ray, you can do that. You can get House 1 and you can get House 2 from Arrow Video individually. Now, this box set, House 2 Stories, this is long out of print, but what's cool is I want to show you this, the booklet. Now, this was the first time I saw how nice those booklets could be with physical media releases, because you have to remember, at this time in 2016 when this came out, Impressive doesn't even cut it for how nice this box set was. And getting this booklet just like took me back, seeing all the makeup design images and stuff like this. That's a great scene in the movie, by the way, was just fantastic. So this is the American box set, but there was this big collector's box set that I'll show you guys a picture of overseas in the UK. Now, here's something to note. Overseas in the UK, there were more movies that were called House. There was House 3, the horror show, and then there was House 4, which actually featured a little bit of Roger Cobb in that again, and also featured Kane Hodder as a pizza face. Yes, you heard me right. Kane Hodder plays a pizza. And that box set is pretty expensive now. If you want to get that online, you may be able to get it at a decent price, but it's a little bit harder to come by today. It's definitely an eBay thing. When I found out that there was House 3 and 4, because you have to remember, when this came out, me thinking about buying Region B stuff, forget about it. It was so unattainable, and it seemed ridiculous to do that I never did it or even thought about doing it. So I was content with that. Then I decided I wanted to get House 3 somehow, and I was trying to find it and I couldn't find it. Then I learned it was a movie called The Horror Show in America. It was called House 3 outside of the States. Weird. I don't know how many times in horror that kind of thing has happened, but yeah, House 3 is called The Horror Show. And it actually is a really good movie. It features Lance Henriksen, and it's kind of like the movie Shocker. Almost too much like the movie Shocker, but who cares? It's a Lance Henriksen movie, and that's an automatic 3 stars. I love Lance Henriksen. And then I subsequently learned around that time, too, that there was a House 4, because somebody had a picture of this box set that I saw online at the time, and it just rocked my world. So there is another box set you can get, and as far as I know, this is still somewhat available. You can get online. But the reason I got this at the time, like I said, getting Region B stuff at that time was out of the question. I did not do anything like that. So then I learned about this. This is the smaller box set from overseas called the House Collection. Now, as you can see, this one looks fairly similar to the one I have, but instead of the 2 stories, this one's just called the House Collection, and you'll notice this is a Region B title, a Region B box set. But look inside. It's got 4 movies instead of 2. The thickness is about the same because the Blu-ray cases are thinner in this one, and that one obviously has a book, but this one has House 3 and 4. Now, finding out this was region-free was a game changer, because now I could finally watch House 3 and House 4. At the time, the Blu-ray from Scream Factory of The Horror Show was either out of print or just expensive for one reason or another, and I was able to get this off of Amazon UK for $29. So it was a no-brainer. I had to get it. So, as you'll see, it includes House 1 and House 2, which we talked about, which you can reverse the artwork for these and the other ones and have this show artwork be the same as well. But this is where the magic came into play. House 3. Now, this is also known as The Horror Show, and let's reverse the art. That way you guys can see what we're rocking with on that one. And the real reason I did this video is probably subconsciously to talk about this. The Horror Show is awesome. It's my second favorite House movie. I love House 1 so much, but right after that, it's The Horror Show. Like I said, this is very similar to something like a Shocker, but it's so good. And the soundtrack, while it's not as good as Shocker, actually has some pretty kick-ass tunes in it. So this is a movie I highly recommend any 80s horror fan checking out big time. It was really fun, and you had Greg Nicotero and other guys working on the effects like this, so you know it's top-tier 80s stuff. It took me a few times to actually start to really appreciate it. This movie is vastly over the top ridiculous. Like I said, Kane Hodder plays a pizza face in House 4. And having Roger Cobb on the front is a little bit of false advertisement. He's in the movie, but don't blink is all I'm saying. So it's just nice to reminisce looking back on my history with Arrow video collecting. This was the start, man. When I got this box set right here, 2 stories, it just changed my notion on what physical media collecting can be, especially for horror. And man, I just wish I would have known better and I would have got that UK 4 stories box set that they had. I don't know if it was called 4 stories, but it was the big version of this that had the booklet and all 4 movies. This was more of the economic box set, which wasn't as limited, but still contained all 4 movies. And really cool for Arrow to actually give you 3 options like that. If the House movies get a 4K box set, that's going to be great. But if not, these are awesome. These are some of my favorite pieces in my collection because they really kickstarted what boutique collecting could be for me. So I love these so much. I hope you guys are familiar with House. If you haven't seen it, I swear it's one of the most fun 80s horror movies. It's just charming. It works so well, and the character of Roger Cobb is lovable. He's so lovable. And to have Norm from Cheers, forget about it. So guys, let me know your thoughts on the House movies. Let me know if you own either of these box sets or that really big one, and what your favorite House movie is. Check out The Horror Show too. I swear that movie is way more fun than people probably realize. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching this. This is your old pal CHH, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.